In this week's episode of Mind Mastery, we're going to find out how you can get a little bit of guidance from your own subconscious. Hey guys, and welcome back to Tipharot. It's me, Matt, here, and in this episode of Mind Mastery, we're going to be probing our subconscious for information. So, there are lots of ways that we can get information from our subconscious. Now, you might remember in earlier episodes I mentioned that one of the reasons that we would write down our dreams was so that we could later analyse them. Now, that's not going to happen just yet in this episode. In this episode, we're going to do something different. We need a tool that we can use when we have a question for our subconscious and we want to ask it directly. Now, the problem with the subconscious is that you can't just ask it like you could your conscious mind. You know, if you want to know what you're thinking with your conscious mind, you just know it's there, it's what you're thinking. If you want to know what someone else's conscious mind is thinking, you just ask them, and you get a straight answer, you know, in spoken language from them. But if you want to know what your subconscious is thinking, the subconscious is symbolic. It deals in metaphor, in symbols, and so you kind of have to decipher that. You kind of have to have a good connection to your own intuition, and you have to be able to find some kind of symbolic representation of what you want to ask, and then use that as a way to probe your subconscious. Because your subconscious, the way that it sees the world is it has a kind of intuitive reaction to the symbols it sees. It sees the colour red, and instead of saying, oh, that's the colour red, it thinks about all the things it associates with red. It thinks that red is a colour of drive, of energy, of power, for example. So when you're actually working with finding out what's going on in your subconscious or asking it a question, you want to do this. You want to take something highly symbolic and you want to see what your intuitive reaction is to those symbols. That will give you an answer directly from your subconscious. So what is something that's highly symbolic? Well, for one, I've already mentioned dreams, and we'll be looking at that later. But another thing is art. If you look at a painting, you could get 20 people lined up looking at the same painting, and they could each tell you a different story about what they think that painting represents, what they think the kind of core idea behind it was. And so we take this principle and we use it somewhere else. Now, some of you might already have guessed what I'm about to talk about, and that is the tarot. Now, the tarot is a bit of a controversial thing. You know, people don't really get the point. You know, you have these cards with drawings on them. How are people using them to, you know, ask questions or divine meaning about a situation? And the answer is simple. I've just told you how your subconscious works. It takes an intuitive reaction, you know, to certain symbols, and it can give you answers through that. So if you actually look at a symbol, the way that you feel about that symbol is representative of what's going on in your subconscious at that moment. So it's not so much the symbol itself that matters, it's just the fact that there is some kind of symbol that's not kind of a clear, defined meaning that could have multiple things, you know, associated with it. And the tarot, being that it's all cards with art on them, is a perfect source of that. There are also oracle cards and all sorts of other, you know, cards that use this kind of symbolic artwork, and when you look at them, you get an intuitive impression, and from that impression you can actually, you know, get some kind of meaning and an answer to your question. So, for this episode, you're going to actually need some tools. Now, I'm going to put some links in the description for all of this, so, you know, check the links and go there. Anyway, so the first thing that you want to have is obviously a tarot deck, and so you could get something like this. This is the Rider-Waite deck, and this is probably, like, you know, the most famous tarot deck. If you search for like a certain tarot card on Google Images, it's probably going to come up with an image from this deck most of the time. And it's a really good deck, and the symbolism, like, the cards are like kind of old style art. I'll show you a few of them if you haven't seen it before. And they have this kind of simple art style, but there's a lot that you can read into it. Like, when you look at this card, there's a lot of things that you could think about what this means. Like, you see these people out in the snow, you know, maybe it's, you know, a time of desperation, or maybe it's associated with this kind of couple here, or maybe it's something to do with this like stained glass window. You know, there's lots of things you can see in the cards, and what you're drawn to and your reaction to it is how you're going to do this in the, you know, how you're going to ask the questions. So it's like, if you look at a few of these, like, you can see a guy, you know, holding up a coin or a pentacle, and like, there's a lot, like, you can look at his posture and see different things. You can look at what's going on in the background, like with all the nature and stuff down there. You can look at the coin itself or the way he's looking at it. There's lots of things that your intuition can pick up on. So I think this is a great deck. Like, a lot of people don't like this deck because it's just the kind of the overused one that everyone uses, but I personally love it, and I think the great thing about it is because this deck is so popular, there's so much like discussion and kind of evolution of what the symbols could mean to different people. So there's so much that can kind of give you ideas, and you can, you know, see what other people think the cards mean and stuff like that, and you know, that can help fuel your own intuition and make you a better reader of the cards. So yeah, I'll put a link to the Rider-Waite deck in the description. You can check that out. So yeah, this is the Rider-Waite deck. I'll put a link to this in the description. I'll also put a link to a slight variation of this, which is called the Radiant Rider-Waite, and that one has slightly nicer, kind of updated, more colourful, more vibrant, you know, art on the cards, and a lot of people prefer that deck. I think it's a little bit more expensive than this one, but you know, if you prefer it looking a little bit nicer and you want the same kind of style, then check that one out. Put that in the description as well. And you know, if you want something a bit more fancy, I actually have another deck that I quite like, which is the Hermetic Tarot. Now this one's black and white, which not everyone likes, but what I love about it, and I'll show you guys just now. Okay, so what I love about it is just a detail in the art in this. Like, it's really, really well done. And one of the other things about it, okay, this isn't the best example. Okay, here you go. Is you can actually see all the correspondences. Now, if you're actually someone who's done any sort of anything esoteric or magical before, you'll know there's different astrological correspondences to the cards and elemental correspondences and all of this. And for someone like me, that's useful. Like here, you can see the symbol for Leo in the corner. You've got the symbol of Jupiter. And you've got some Hebrew on there, and you've got also a title of the card and that, as well as what the actual name of the card is, and you know, the art. And I quite like this deck. I don't use it as much because the kind of black and white kind of makes it a bit harder for me to get an intuitive impression from it, but I still love this deck and it's pretty awesome. Okay, so if you look in the description and you're wanting this deck, it's called the Hermetic Tarot, and there'll be a link that says Hermetic Tarot, and then there'll be a link for, you know, if you want to get it in Amazon US or Amazon UK. I don't have links for the other Amazon, but just, you know, copy paste the name onto whichever Amazon and check it out. And finally, like, you know, if you don't want one of those decks, just go on Amazon or go on, you know, whatever site that you use to buy things normally, and just search for tarot decks and have a look. And once you find a deck that has an interesting looking box, or you know, that you can see one card that looks interesting, then search for the name of that deck on Google and have a look at the images. Find one that really kind of draws your attention. You know, if you don't like the suggestions that I've given, then don't go for those, because it's important that you kind of intuitively do get some kind of reaction from the cards, because if you don't, you know, it's not going to work for you. And so once you've got your deck, you know, go off, do that, get yourself a deck. Or alternatively, if you really want to try this out now and you don't have a deck yet, then just get yourself one of these, you know, pack of cards. It's not going to be good for the intuitive part, because, you know, there's not exactly much in the way of art going on, you know, one of these things. But, you know, it's, if you haven't, you know, got the money for a tarot deck at the minute, you know, perhaps you don't have any money to spare for something like that, or you just don't have one and you want to try it out, like in the meantime. So if you don't have a tarot deck because, you know, it's too expensive, or you can't get one right now and you just want to try out the method, then get a regular deck of playing cards. And what you'll do is you'll take the card that's drawn. Now, there are 4 suits in a regular deck of playing cards, and there are 4 suits in the tarot cards. In the tarot cards, for example, the ones are associated with fire, and the ones would be clubs. Yeah, they would be clubs, I think. Yeah, clubs would be ones. So Queen of Clubs would be the Queen of Wands. Then you have the spades, which would spades be? I think spades would be, okay. Spades would be air, I think spades would be air, so this would be, you know, the 2 of swords, swords air, 2 of swords this would be. Hearts would be cups, the suit of cups in tarot, so, you know, I'll find a heart here. Okay, so this would be the 7 of cups, and finally, diamonds are pentacles, so this would be the 5 of pentacles. So you can do it like that, and then look up, you know, the card on Google. But what I don't suggest you do is don't look up the card meaning. This is about your intuition. Your intuition is meant to get an idea from the card. So instead of looking up the card meaning, look up pictures of the card. You know, look up a picture of every card in the Rider-Waite deck. Or search for example, say you got, you know, the 5 of diamonds, search for, you know, Five of Pentacles right away, and look at the image on Google Images and see what your intuition tells you about that. So that's the way that you can do it if you don't have a deck right now. Okay, now onto the actual method of reading. I'm going to give you a couple of really, really simple ways to read tarot. So, I'm going to take my Rider-Waite deck here, and this is perhaps one of the most simple ways of ever, reading tarot that there is. And it's great because, you can do it as a beginner if you've never read before. And what I want you to do is simply take your tarot deck, and think of what your question is. So, say your question is, I don't know, how will my day go tomorrow? What I want you to then do is just go through the cards, like looking at them, face up, looking at the cards face up, and go through until you find a card that you feel like represents tomorrow. Just like intuitively, when you see that card, you think it means tomorrow. And then look at the card and start to examine it. What do you see? So say you drew, say you drew this card, the Queen of Wands, yeah? You look at the card and you can see a woman sitting in a throne. You can see she's got a little cat there and a staff, and that she's got these robes that kind of flow with the same colour as like the desert in the background. And there's a flower growing in her hand, and like you can look at it and then you can say, what does this represent to you? So perhaps you see all the yellow gold colour, and to you that represents wealth. So perhaps there's something to do with money. Perhaps you're thinking about money and what could be related to money tomorrow. So you can go into that. So what could be related to money tomorrow? Is there any clues in the rest of this? And so perhaps this reminds you of someone in your family. So you think this is something to do with money and family. Maybe you owe someone in your family money, or maybe someone in your family owes you money, and you're thinking about that. Maybe that's related to what's going to happen tomorrow. Basically, look for clues in the picture and ask yourself the simple question: what does this picture represent to me? What feelings do I get from this picture? What does this evoke in me? And ask yourself that, and you should get a vague idea of the answer to your question. And that's one of the simplest ways to do it. Another simple way that you can read tarot without doing a spread or anything like that is to think of a card that is associated with your problem. So say your question. So say your question is say you feel your question is one of abundance. You want to know when you're going to grow in some area or expand in some area. And so you feel abundance is related to that, and you've chose the Ace of Cups because you feel it represents abundance. Well, now what you're going to do, let's pretend I didn't take that card out of the pack there. What you're going to do is, now you've decided it's the Ace of Cups, you just take your deck, you can shuffle it if it hasn't been shuffled yet. And after you've shuffled it a little bit, what you do is you just go through the deck until you find the Ace of Cups. And then what you can do is look at the cards on either side of it and take them as your answer. So, let me find the Ace of Cups quickly. Okay, so I have found the Ace of Cups, and this is the cards on either side. So I have this Queen of Wands. So, we just said, this is perhaps, related to wealth or something. So there's an abundance, the growth is going to be in an area of wealth. There's going to be a expansion of money. And here we have the Star, and the Star for me, it always represented this kind of connection to one's spiritual origins, to one's higher self. And so this is perhaps if I was reading this, it would be a message that through kind of working with kind of my ideals, the things that I believe are my highest esteems in life, the things that I want to really do in life, my passions in that it would result in an expansion of wealth, for example. So that would be an example reading that you could do by that second method. So there you go, you've got two methods that you can read with, and what I want you to do today is just do 2 or 3 practice readings, and you can do the same tomorrow. And I want you to do a bit of practice before the next episode. Get familiar with just asking questions. It can be little things like how's tomorrow gonna go, or what do I need to work on now, or how's my relationship going, or what should I do to make my boss happier with me at work. Something like that. Just ask a few questions and practice with the cards. If you haven't got yourself a deck already, get yourself one. Put all the links in the description. So yeah, get working and get understanding your subconscious, and we'll be doing more of that in the next episode. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Mind Mastery. If you enjoyed the episode, remember to subscribe up there because we've got regular videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. If you like this, leave a thumbs up. If you want to keep watching, check out the video that's linked on screen. And if you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.